Good morning, everyone. I'm Mark James, Director of the Missouri Department of Public Safety. Seems it was just a few days ago we were right here at this very spot with most of you talking about the state's response to the flooding in over 70 counties in the state of Missouri. We talked about, if you will recall, the different phases of a disaster, ranging from response to recovery and mitigation. And now we've pretty well transitioned into that recovery phase. We have numerous teams, joint teams of State Emergency Management Agency personnel, along with the Federal Emergency Management Agency personnel, working with our local and county counterparts throughout the state, doing damage assessments, getting the documentation required now to start healing the communities, getting infrastructure replaced, and all of those sorts of things. We are very fortunate to have here in the state with us Director Paulson, Director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. He has come personally to view the situation in the state of Missouri to ensure that we're getting all the assistance that we need, and to move quickly on, I'll turn it over to Colonel Keithley of the Highway Patrol.
Thank you, Mark. Well, our role in the recovery effort is not as drastic, obviously, as it is in the emergency stages of this disaster. We're just hoping and praying that more rain doesn't come. Calling for bad weather here in the next few days, and we'll be ready to step up if needed. As I mentioned earlier in earlier press conferences, we had about 104 troopers assigned to flood detail for the days that this carried on for 12-hour shifts. And also had a lot of air support out there. We will continue to do that if needed. Today we'll be traveling to different parts of the state and escorting the director around, showing him some of the places that were affected by the flood. I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Governor Kinder.
Thank you. On behalf of the people of Missouri, I want to welcome Director Paulson to our state and thank him for coming here personally and for the commitment that FEMA has made to stand alongside our folks here in Missouri, SEMA, and the Highway Patrol, and all the state agencies that threw themselves into this flood fight at this historic moment last week. I am also especially grateful this morning that the United States Army Corps of Engineers has heard our urgent pleas on the and vetoed their decision, rescinded their decision to go ahead with a spring rise on the Missouri River. We did not need millions more gallons of water coming down the river after what we've been through in the last 9 days. So I'm grateful for that, and this has been an extraordinary effort at the federal, state, and local levels. It continues today as we go around gathering more information and facts and getting briefing from folks on the ground. I would say that the real test, and a testament to that extraordinary effort, is that in such an emergency statewide from border to border, that we only had 5 fatalities is a great testament to the heroic efforts. I have in mind all the agencies I've named, along with the Missouri Department of Conservation, the Missouri Water Patrol, the U.S. Coast Guard. Those last 2 agencies were doing desperate treetop rescues Tuesday, Wednesday of last week, and saved a lot of lives. So I'm grateful, and now I'll turn it over to Director Paulson.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. First of all, from the President, I want to say our deepest condolences, our prayers, and our sympathy goes to the families who have lost loved ones, people who have lost their homes, pretty much everything they worked for their entire lives. No matter how many times you come to disaster scenes like this, you never get used to it. So those are the difficult things to deal with, and our prayers are with those families and friends. I want to comment also on the response of the state emergency management system here and how well they have worked. As I go from state to state, I look very carefully at that system that we have in place, this emergency management system we have. And this state has done an outstanding job of not only preparing for but responding to this type of disaster. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of experience. We were debating on whether Missouri or Oklahoma had the most disasters this last year, and I think it's pretty much a tie. We see the disasters on television, but I need to come and see it myself. I'm pleased that the Lieutenant Governor would take the time to take me to the places he wants me to see. We're going to look at those areas, visit the sites that are the heaviest damaged, so I can take that back and brief the President on what I saw. So I thank them for that and thank them for that particular time. Again, our hearts go out to those who have lost everything, but I can tell you that the partnership that we have with this state is an example that we can use across the rest of the country, and that's what this new FEMA is all about. It's not about coming in and taking over. We're not going to do that because all response is local and all response belongs to the state. But the new FEMA, instead of being a reactive organization, is going to be proactive, and that means standing side by side with the state and the local community to make sure that if there's any needs there, if there's any gaps in the system, regardless of where it is, whether it's a local, state, or federal level, together we can resolve it, and that's what's happening here. So I'm very pleased with that, and I want to thank you very much, and I believe we're going to take a few questions. That's correct.
We'll do a brief Q&A, everybody.
There are a lot of people in this state that are familiar with communities being reimbursed for infrastructure expenses, rescue expenses, that sort of thing, but there are a lot of flood victims that are interested in whether or not they're going to get individual assistance. Some folks are even talking buyout. What are the conditions that must be present before FEMA will recommend individual assistance? What are the conditions before FEMA will recommend?
There's several things we look at. We look at the amount of damage, and that's what we're doing now. Working hand in hand with the state, doing those preliminary damage assessments. We're about halfway done. Should be wrapping them up very quickly in the next day and a half or so to get those finished. 2, the amount of insurance coverage, the amount of the poverty level that's out there, those that are in low income. So we combine all those together. I get that information and assimilate it, and then I make a recommendation to the President. That will happen very quickly since we're almost halfway done, and we're getting a pretty good picture of what we see out there. A lot of infrastructure damage, a lot of individual assistance damage, and so what I'm doing here today is to wrap that up. We'll get that information over the next day and a half or 2 days, and then I'll make a recommendation to the President, and we'll let the Governor know exactly what that decision is.
Is it a big step up from individual assistance to buyout, and what's the difference?
There's 2 different programs. We look at repetitive loss, so we have several tremendous success stories in this state of doing buyout. I think we bought out almost 5,000 homes, and one of the areas that we're going to look at is an area that was bought out just recently. It did flood, but there's no homes there. So that's a good news story. So we'll look at that very carefully. We'll bring our flood mitigation people in and work with the state. And it's a state and local decision of areas that they think we need to look at buying out. And we'll put those together in a package and decide with the state whether we're going to go that way or not.
Mr. Paulson, when somebody looks at the amount of money that has to be paid to somebody who's had a terrible loss, what percentage does FEMA pick up if they do have flood insurance? Is FEMA or the federal government off the hook at that point? The flood insurance will take care of it, or will there be certain?
The Stafford Act allows us to provide assistance to those with either no insurance or they're underinsured in certain areas. So we cannot duplicate benefits. So if they have flood insurance, then they're covered. The amount of money, total amount of money that FEMA can give to any individual or any homeowner is $28,200, $28,800. That's much less than you would have if you had flood insurance. This is an important issue that you raise. Flood insurance is so important for each individual homeowner to have because we see what happens. And I tell people if I lived on top of a mountain, I would have flood insurance.